Wisconsin Youth and Government. This is Delegate Kaylee Bell, your Supreme Court and Social Justice Editor, also heading the Media Video Project. Today we have put together for you some results of the Supreme Court cases in addition to some information about them, in addition to some information about what's been happening in the world this week. Please enjoy.
Hi, I'm Delegate Larsen. I am joined by Delegate O'Keefe, the first justice from the Fox Cities delegation. And today we'll be talking about the case number 2. Can you give us a brief summary of the case?
Sure. So the Richland County Courthouse decorated its front lawn for the Christmas holiday with snowmen, holiday lights, and a big Santa Claus. And basically the controversy is that this violates the separation of church and state clause because the courthouse is obviously decorating for a religious holiday. However, the argument made is that these symbols have now become cultural symbols, as Christmas is celebrated by non-Christians as well and is more of a cultural holiday than a religious one, so it would not violate the separation of church and state clause. So that's the overview of the case. It just has to do with separation of church and state.
Okay. Can you give us a little bit on how the procedure went?
Sure. So the appellant mostly argued that this was unfair to many religions because there are lots of people in the United States who are not Christian and celebrate other religions like Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, and these religions are not recognized by the courthouse. Therefore, it is a conflict of interest as it excludes people of other religions, where the respondent went more on to prove with some statistics and facts about how a lot of non-Christian people still celebrate Christmas because it is a cultural holiday, just family, for fun, for gifts, etc., not religious to celebrate the birth of Christ, which is the obvious religious connotation of Christmas. So the respondent just proved that these symbols were not religious symbols, but holiday symbols and cultural symbols instead.
Okay. And what was the final ruling, and why did the court decide that?
The final ruling was a 6-0 decision for the respondent, and we ultimately decided this because we felt that they better answered the legal questions and established that through legal backing that these symbols were not religious symbols, but they were actually cultural symbols. Therefore, they would not violate the separation of church and state clause.
Okay, great. That's all I needed to ask you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Isaac Pischer of the Triple Delegation here, and I am with Chief Justice Amanda Padgett of the Fox Cities delegation. So Amanda, pick up case number 3. What was going on in that case?
Yeah, so in case number 3, Patricia Watson was a 20-year-old single mother, and she was involved in a vehicle collision with her daughter in the car. And as she was found guilty of that charge, and so as her sentence, she was required to write a 500-word apology and submit pictures of her and her daughter's injuries to the local newspaper, and that needed to be published in addition to a little write-up about safety when driving with infants. The key component to this case is that Patricia has ADHD and cognitive disabilities, so she had a difficult time writing the letter. She claimed that due to her trauma after writing the letter, she felt that was an unfair sentence and asked for it to be revoked.
Okay, sure. So then what actually happened during this case? What are the arguments that were made?
So I actually spoke for the appellant in this case. So I was speaking for the state of Wisconsin, and essentially my argument, I feel it's a very important one, is that the importance of judicial discretion is extremely important, and judges basically have the duty to look at each case particularly and decide a sentence that's appropriate. And my case strongly shows that it is appropriate because the letter is serving a greater purpose, which is educating her community on safety while you're driving with a toddler. Some of the key arguments that were made is punishment shaming slash is shaming cruel and unusual punishment, which is prohibited by the Eighth Amendment. The consensus there was that it is not, because there's several legal precedent to prove that shaming is not actually against cruel and unusual punishment, so long as it serves a greater purpose. The greater purpose being served is, of course, her community, like safety tips while driving with an infant. Also, another important thing is that because she was able to go on probation and write a letter instead of going to jail, this saved her from not having to go to jail and be apart from her daughter for so long.
Yeah, and so then in the case, actually, it talks about that how they wanted that sentence to be revoked, and how did that play out in the hearing?
Yeah, so ultimately the court did rule in the appellant's favor, meaning the charges were not revoked and the letter was still required to be written and published, as well as it was decided that requiring this letter was not cruel and unusual punishment.
Alrighty, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
There is a lot happening in the world this week. The pandemic is still running rampant through almost every nation in the globe. There are also several movements finally gaining traction they need. In addition, many government policies are getting put in place. There are protest relief programs and conflicts that have been utilized or dismantled very recently as well. Let's recap a few of these detrimental and groundbreaking events all across the globe from the last few days. Let's start off with some good news. Americans will reach a total of 100 million vaccines by this Friday under the Biden administration and their first 100-day plan. This goal is 40 days earlier than expected. In addition, the Biden administration has decided to provide a certain sum of excess coronavirus vaccines to Mexico and Canada. The leader of the Department of Health and Human Services, Xavier Becerra, barely reached verification from the Senate on his title this week, but is now leading the agency to regulating and halting the virus.
The AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine, commonly used in European nations, has indeed been confirmed to be safe and functional. However, the European Medicines Agency conducted a study of 25 individual cases with diagnosed blood clots after receiving the vaccine. The goal was to observe the connection between the type of vaccine and blood clots in the brain and veins. 9 of the 25 died due to complications of the blood clot. No other blood clots in the AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccine patients have been found out of the other 20 million people who have received it throughout the United Kingdom and other European nations. Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and a few other nations had suspended the use and distribution of the AstraZeneca vaccine, now plan to begin use again this week.
The goal to fully vaccinate every Italian citizen over 80 has fallen short this month. In actuality, only 1/3 of Italy's total sum of 7 million doses have been administered to citizens above the age of 80. Over 66% of total coronavirus-related deaths in Italy have been people from this age group, and 2.5 million elderly in Italy are still waiting for their vaccines to increase their chances of surviving.
A volcano 20 miles south of Reykjavik, Iceland's capital, erupted Friday night after being dormant for approximately 6,000 years. The Icelandic Meteorological Office remarked that the eruption, while shocking, was actually pretty small scale and did not require evacuation of any kind. This was the first eruption on the Reykjanes Peninsula in almost 800 years, and the lava covered a little less than a mile around the volcano. This was far less concerning than the 2010 volcanic eruption named the name Eyjafjallajökull in Iceland.
In Africa, the border region between two rivers named the Alfasha is still being disputed over by Sudan and Ethiopia. Many government officials worry that this dispute will end in war between these two nations and escalate into a larger regional conflict. Prior to this issue, a 100-year treaty claims the disputed territory, the Al-Fasha, to the Sudanese people. However, Ethiopia also has a large presence in the area as many of their citizens live in the region. When Ethiopia fell into a civil war, the Tigray region of Ethiopia, which connects to the Al-Fasha, broke the delicate border system that was in place. Now tensions are rising, and the Sudanese officials have officially accused the Ethiopian Prime Minister of attempting to force Sudan in a corner by halting negotiations for the filling up of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam being built near the border. If no proper agreement is made, then the water supply of half of Sudan would be potentially in jeopardy. It is very likely that war will ensue between these two nations over this territory as well as other diplomatic policies.
The president of Istanbul shocked Istanbulites last night when he withdrew from the Istanbul Convention Treaty, which was used to protect Turkish and other European women of their rights when it came to gender-based violence. It included 34 European nations and has become world-renowned for protecting women internationally. Women rights activists in Turkey have been observing the country's lack of enforcement for the treaty and the provisions it calls much before its withdrawal. This moment will potentially further divide Ankara and the capital of Turkey and the United States. Tensions have already risen due to Turkey's anti-LGBTQIA plus ethics and ideas from the past, and this withdrawal will most likely not be favored by Americans.
This concludes the video by the Wisconsin Word. Thank you for your time.